All right, here we are, number four. It'll be exactly like this on the test. I'm just going to have a different number here and here. But you can expect all this exact same stuff. So if you're watching these videos, you're making a smart choice. So let's see here. First, they want us to add P and Q. They got this thing. It says let P equal 5 minus 2I, and Q equals negative 3 plus 7I, and write each expression in the form of A plus BI. And really, this is not, and we're not doing really anything different than you've done before with a variable. This isn't a variable, this is I. It's the imaginary number, the square root of -1. But we're going to treat this just like it was x, basically. When we add these up, subtract one from the other, and then multiply them together. The only difference is, once we multiply them together, we got that I squared. We're going to call that -1, because I to the power 2 is -1. So let's write this up here real quick. I equals square root of -1. It's this imaginary number we came up with so we could figure out a way to take square roots of negative numbers. And if you raise that to the power of 2, you know what happens if you raise a square root to the power of 2? It just comes out of the radical there, and we got just -1. So I squared equals -1. And that'll come into play down there at C when we multiply P times Q. So first, let's add them up. I would recommend taking your two numbers, this binomial here. It's got two terms, 5 and -2I. And we're going to add it to -3 plus 7I. Technically, there's a little parentheses around here, kind of. I'm going to highlight this just so nobody's confused at all where this came from, right? Here's P. I'm adding P in orange to Q. I'll highlight in purple. And what you got to do here is just be careful. You got some positives and negatives. You got to be mindful of that as you're adding these together. There's lots of chances to make mistakes here. So I like to say it's important to mind your P's and Q's when you try to solve these. All right, 5 plus -3. You know what that is? That's just 2. So here, let's put our answer in blue. 5 plus a -3 is 2. And then we got a -2 plus 7I. And I'm pretty sure that's positive 5I. And so there's our solution to A. There's P plus Q. Now let's subtract Q from P. Oh, I forgot to mention, make sure, look, you're going to want to get these columns nice and even. Like, put the like terms above each other. We can only combine like terms. We can combine these two constants, 5 and -3. These are actually kind of a constant because it's not a variable, that I. It's just square root of -1. But these are the terms we're going to combine right there. So we put them above each other in a nice even column so that we can get our solution to line up like this. We'll do the same thing for P minus Q. So let's write it in purple here. What did we say? We said 5 minus 2I. The P is in orange. So we got 5 minus 2I. And this time we're going to subtract this binomial. And we're using purple for Q. So we got -3 plus 7I. And we'll see what we get down here. So a couple notes real quick. Like I said, we're stack them up nice and even, the ones that we're going to add to each other. And then also, you got to be careful. If you subtract the binomial like this, you're not just subtracting the -3. You got to remember, you're subtracting this positive 7 here. So the negative is going to change this -3 to +3. Minus a negative is plus, and minus a positive is -7I. So here we go. Let's see what that looks like. In blue, our solution is going to be 5 minus a negative 3. We're actually adding 3 to 5, so we get 8 over here. And, oh, it's going to be a negative here. We got negative 2. And, like I said, don't forget to distribute this negative onto this second term right here. It's going to flip this plus 7i, make it minus 7i. So negative 2 minus 7, guess what that is? Negative 9i. And in these first two here, we're just adding and subtracting i's. So we don't have any I squareds, okay? We're not going to get to that until we multiply two i's times each other. If you're just adding negative 2 apples plus negative 7 apples, you're going to have negative 9 apples. If you add you got negative 2 iPhones plus negative 7 iPhones, you got 5 iPhones. There's no I squared here happening yet. And these are both in the form of A plus BI. They're calling this A, and this coefficient will be B. This coefficient is B. These two are A. That's what they mean by in the form of A plus BI. So here, but now we got to multiply them together, okay? Let's use the area model. I'm going to grab my little square. Looks like the Windows logo. This is basically just an organizational tool to keep your distributive property organized. So what do we have? 5 minus 2 i's in orange. And in purple, we got Q over there. Negative 3 plus 7i. Negative 3 plus 7i. All right, now what are we doing with this square here? We're just going to multiply. We're going to fill in each window pane here by multiplying this times that in there. We'll multiply this times that in here. We'll multiply this times that in that bottom left-hand corner, and this times that right there. Here we go. Let's add them. Let's multiply it all out. Here's our distributive property. What do we got? We got negative 3 times positive 5 is negative 15. We've got negative 3 times a negative 2. We're going to get positive 6i. Because we had 2 i's, we multiplied them times 3. Now we got 6 i's. And they're positive because it's negative times negative. Now we got positive 7 times positive 5. It's going to be a positive number. I know that 7 times 5 is 35. And we've got I. We just took 7i and multiplied it by 5. And last, down here in this other corner down here, we've got a negative times a positive is going to be a negative. 2 times 7 is 14. And now we got I times I. That's where the I squared comes in. That's I to the power of 2. And then we add all that stuff up. We need to add everything up that's inside of those squares. Negative 15 plus 35i plus 6i minus 14i squared. Just bear with me for just one super quick second while I remind you what's going on, why we did that. We've got 5 minus 2i times negative 3 plus 7i. And all we're doing here with that square is just using the distributor property. We got to multiply the 5 times both of those things. That's where we got the negative 15 plus 35i. And then you got to remember to multiply the negative 2i times negative 3 to get positive 6i. And then multiply the negative 2i times the 7i. So if you're really good at that distributor property, and you remember that you got to multiply 5 and negative 2i times both of those terms over there, go for it. Don't even use the square if you don't want to. But it's a useful tool to have to keep everything organized. Now, let's start combining like terms. We got to clean this up a little bit. It's a little messy. I can combine the 35i plus 6i. I'm going to get 41i right here. The 41i came from when I combined these two like terms right here. And what else we got here? We know that I squared. Up here we said, hey, I squared is -1. So we can change that -14 times I squared, because this I squared is actually just -1. So let's multiply -1 times -14, call it +14. And we can combine that with the -15 out front here. Because did they say, they said they want us to write it in the form of a plus bi. So if you want full credit on this, get rid of the I squared. Change that I squared to a -1. And then combine your like terms. You're going to end up with -15 plus 14 is -1. And we get the plus 41i. And here, this would be our final answer right here. So that's what you got to do for question 4 there. Add those two binomials up, subtract one binomial from another binomial, multiply them both together. Be really careful with those positives and negatives, and remember that I squared equals -1. There you go.